Don Prosser, welcome to the Power Hour Ventures podcast, where we breed a billionaire. I have had so much fun with you in life over the years, and you and I got to know each other, I think originally at a golf tournament, and years in, years out, we always play in member guest golf tournaments together. And, I remember first meeting you, I think we were talking finance, and and you were like, who's this guy? And I was like, who's this guy? And I think we were just kind of going back and forth on all sorts of things.
We ended up in the same cart together.
Yeah, we did. And you had a different partner, I had a different partner, right. And we ended up just kind of chatting it out. And, and the rest has kind of been history. But a little bit about yourself. So you guys are, tell me a little bit about your firm.
It's Hanson Co, and we're based in Denver over on Colorado, Mississippi. And we have about 80 people, including the temporaries and everybody, and $9-10 million revenue firm, and I feel like we do really well. It's well managed, and we are careful about the type of business we take, and try to be very timely getting things done. Sometimes that doesn't happen, but in our business that happens to everybody.
Always. And it's a CPA tax firm. And
right.
So
and audit. Yeah.
And audit, right. Yeah, and I think, it was a couple years ago. You guys are always like 1, 2, or 3 in the largest privately held independent tax firms in Denver.
We're 2 or 1, I'm not sure at this point.
I think you guys might be 1 now. So congratulations and kudos on that.
Yeah, when EKH and S merged or whatever,
Right. So, when you guys are going through all this, you deal with one of the most complicated situations in life for most people's situations, meaning their tax situation, right? Mm-hmm. There's not always a win, even though there's ways of building strategies that can benefit you short-term, long-term, and any thought on that?
You have to think about the tax code. The tax code was written in 1954, and it's never been changed. It's just been amended. And I think since I've been in business 19 times. Mm-hmm. And so the 2 major ones were 86 and then the Trump Act. Mm-hmm. And so it's really, really understand how it works and how to do the strategies, you have to kind of look at the tax tree and say, okay, what drives what and why? Mm-hmm. And then what can you do to minimize taxes and maximize your return on investments based on tax strategies.
Right.
And so but it's really driven about how things come into income and come into expense. And so I don't know, it's so complex that sometimes you just have to sit and think.
Right. And I sit there and try and do my own taxes at times. I'm just like, what am I doing? And obviously I talk to you,
right.
like week in, week out, and what really drives a tax change? Like the Trump change, so was that really like a presidency thing, or was it more across like the 3 branches?
They were trying to, I believe, they didn't get everything done they wanted, but they were trying to make it more economical for everyone to live, and actually tax revenue went up with decrease in rates, and a lot of that was all, but it doesn't work at all unless you quit spending. So
right,
but that's what drives it. That Tax Act 86 was the same thing. They were just the rate was really high back in those days. It was like between 50 and 70%, and they decided that they needed to fix all the loopholes, and they did fix a lot of them. But again, it's all driven by I like to tell the story. The biggest owner of HUD projects in the country was Tip O'Neill, and he was Speaker of the House. And in that tax act, they had gotten rid of really being able to deduct any of your real estate stuff past break even, except for HUD projects.
Interesting.
And so that's
a big advantage.
It was a big advantage, and they still had a lot of, and it's still that way. It doesn't fall into the passive activity rules and all that. And so, so you always want to see who drives pieces. Like Rostakowski was in a state that had no sales tax, so he got rid of the sales tax deduction.
Right.
And so when you look at all the acts, everything that you see comes out. This has been crazy since Trump. Biden's had, I don't know how many different things have come out that affect taxes, and we're forever, the CARES Act, and we're forever adjusting what we're doing because there's some new thing that pops out that
Right.
you don't know about.
So let's talk a business owner real quick. I mean, let's say that a business owner is getting ready to do an exit, 3 years, 5 years, maybe even 8, 10 years, whatever it might be, but they're starting to think about it. I mean, one of the biggest mistakes I always see with business owners when they're trying to exit is they don't get advice and help early.
Right.
I mean, at what stage in the game, if a business owner is thriving, successful, what are some of the first steps that they should start looking at and associating with companies like you and your company?
Well, I think it's more than just when they're getting out. To be successful, you really should be doing planning all the time and budgeting and looking at what's going on. Most good entrepreneurs do that.
Outsourcing the
And
right sort
and
of
a lot
things.
of their advice, go get advice. I mean, I've got clients like 3 of my clients I've had since 1977. That's aging me a little bit. And
It's before I was born, actually.
yes,
yeah.
I know, and they're in their 80s. Well, 2 of them are, and one's in his 70s. And the one thing that's always worked, and these guys all made millions of dollars, is they always called and wanted to have meetings talking about strategy going forward. And so sometime along the line, they start figuring out, how am I going to get out of this business? My kid's going to take it over. Am I going to find somebody to merge me, or going to sell it? I'm going to liquidate it.
Right.
And every business is different. And so, big part of our business anymore is business valuation, which is used for 3 reasons: one for divorce, one for business exit, and one for death. And so, I would say at least a third of the ones we do are for people wanting to get a real feel for what their business is worth, because there's all these guys that say they'll sell your business,
Right.
and they can give you a value, but they're just doing 10 times earnings or 8 times earnings. It's really
Right.
not. It's
really
more
not a
integral.
deep
It's
depth.
more, yeah.
Yeah.
And then structuring. When people get out, I've had more than one client that just sold the business assets and kept the cash and took care of their own receivables and their payables, and that's usually a better way to go than what happens. And then that also has to do with tax vehicle.
Yeah.
Because if nowadays, if you're a C corp, it might be a lower tax for the corporation, but you got to pay tax when the money comes out, and so you have to look at that whole picture too.
Yeah, one of my favorite parts of, just having a great relationship with you is your strategic mind around all these different situations. And I know I've called you so many times in life and said, Don, here's what I'm looking at. How do I work through this, right?
Right.
And that's one of the things I would love to portray, is that your guys' firm is so strategic, and you guys have so many resources and great things,
Right.
And so you guys have capacity to onboard new clients and really help with these really advanced planning strategies.
And that's kind of my role is I'm a principal, and because we have a rule, and it's good for our young guys, if once you're 65, you can't be a partner anymore, because it makes room for guys to come up
Right.
in the business. And
Yeah.
but my role nowadays is, I have a huge book of business, but I outsource almost everything to people to work on and review it. But my meetings with the clients all have to do with planning and strategy, and people call and ask,
Yeah.
can you do this or do that?
Yeah.
And so, and I'll give you a great example of that. I have a client they've been a great friend for a long time, but he didn't do the business.
Yeah.
And about 4 years ago, he was with a national firm. And 4 years ago or so, he called me and said, "This is silly. You guys can do this work, can't you?" And I go, "Yeah." And they've already happier about what's going on. In fact,
Yeah.
the whole family's coming over now. So
Yeah.
you just don't know. I just think that I will tell you, one of my early clients said, "Best money I spend is the money with you up front."
Well, you've helped save me a lot of money throughout time. So
yeah.
Well, thank you for being here today, and greatly appreciate all the service and support and friendship that I've had with you through the years.
Yeah,
And
I appreciate the Power Hour and all the referrals and people I've met too.
Yeah, yeah.
So
awesome. Well, thanks for being
Thanks.
here, and we look forward to seeing you next time in the golf tournament here coming up in the next couple of weeks.
that's right.
Yeah, 2-3
Okay.
weeks away. So.
All right.
Awesome.
Thanks,
for
Zach.
being here.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Bye.
Thanks.